Made possible through support from ARC thrift stores, developmental pathways, Firefly Autism, and the Arc of Aurora. A THINK+change training.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 3 in our 504 IEP series, really focused on supporting and assisting families in better understanding the process of both the IEP and 504 plans, as well as just giving you some tips and tricks on how to navigate inevitable barriers. So I am here today with Jacque Phillips. She comes with 10 years plus of experience in special education law, has a doctorate in special education. And, you know, I am so happy you're joining us because ultimately we need experts to help us fill in all of the gaps and to support families and individuals with folks with IDD to navigate systems that are just not set up to be super easy to get through. So thank you for joining us, Jacque.
You bet. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you joining us because we want to make sure that families better understand their parental rights. So each year, as you know, families have access to parental rights through the IEP process. And while that's maybe initially when folks first start with an IEP, perhaps gone through with some level of detail, we know that over years and years of IEP meetings, oftentimes school teams kind of cruise through and want to just make sure that parents have the notice. But we know that those functional parental rights are actually the foundation of the IEP and help people navigate through next steps, understanding what they can expect from a school team, etc. So we just help us kind of demystify what are parental rights, what should our families be looking for, and what should they know, especially as issues that are often and routine pop up in the school setting.
You bet. So yeah, I'll try and demystify in 20 minutes. So as every parent knows, the system is extremely complicated. Yes, the parental rights packet goes out and, you know, parents get that at every meeting. I think they typically, you know, add it to their stack or just throw it away. It's not an easy read. That's actually something I'd love to work with CDE on making that more user friendly. I think that as far as what to look for, well, right now, obviously the hot topic is going to be compensatory services because of COVID. Yeah. And honestly, most schools are just coming in and offering, like just coming in to like make it right, which I think is great. I think the other things to watch for are on the services page. Like the first thing that we look for is go right to the services page and look at the services. Yeah. So, and then we work backwards. We go, okay, are the services, you know, in line with the goals, and are they in line with the assessment? And that seems like something really logical and easy, but we often see some disconnects, like that, you know, there's a reading deficit, but there's no reading goal, or there's a reading goal, but no reading services. So the first place we look is on the services page because we're looking for services not provided. So sometimes they'll be like, oh, my student was supposed to get mental health services, but you know, that didn't happen. So we look for that. The other thing that we'll often talk about is lack of parental participation. Yeah. So by the time we hear from parents, you know, at my law office, they've been through a lot already, and often they feel like they have not been heard in the process. So we track annually at my office, which I don't want to use the word winning because we believe in a collaborative, non-adversarial process, but we do watch the state and federal complaints every year to see, you know, where is the decision made for the parents and where's the decision made for the school. And then we track, like, what are the 5, you know, biggest complaints or the most common things. Yeah. And so that's why we saw piece about lack of parental participation. This is coming from CDE complaints, services not provided. And now you'll see progress monitoring, which I'm really happy actually to see, you know, CDE coming in on some of those complaints, talking about progress monitoring is different from a progress report. So that's another one that we would see often.
That's great. Excellent. So if there are routine issues with parental rights, or let's say a family has tried their hardest to resolve their own issues, right? They perhaps have even engaged an advocacy organization like ours, or even engaged a private advocate. We know that an effective strategy can be engaging legal expertise as well, right? And we see it at the Arc of Aurora as an escalated advocacy strategy at that point, right? That it hasn't been able to be resolved at the local level by, informal or formal communications. When do you think, Jackie, what are some maybe tips for families to better understand when it's useful to engage a lawyer to help manage any kind of hiccups or barriers that their child is receiving?
I mean, first I want to do a shout out to you and to everybody at the ARC, because having the ARC at the table is going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Sometimes what we flag sometimes is sometimes private advocates that are overly aggressive.
Sure.
That's not helpful. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if I always go, don't go to the school and poke people in the eye like they have your kid all day, right?
Yeah.
But we know that statewide, the ARC advocates are very well trained, and in fact, the ARC will call us, and to your point, because they'll be like, we've gone as far as we can go.
Sure.
And so to answer the question, at what point do you call an attorney? Well, number one, it's very expensive.
Yes.
And so, I have some clients that I go to their IEP meeting every single year for many, many years as a result of, some complaint that we had done like years before that. And now there's no problem with the school at all. They're just like, no, we just want to have an attorney at the table. We're just kind of making sure that, we're all good.
Sure.
I think it's the important part about bringing an attorney in is you want it to be non-adversarial. So I tell parents to bring an attorney in. You want to say, I just need to understand the process. We're bringing an attorney because we can't navigate the system. And that's different than we're bringing an attorney because we're really super angry.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, typically by the time parents are calling attorneys, they are angry, but there's no need to, for us to jump right in. We're always going to say, what's happened so far, but I can tell you that we probably don't have any cases where there hasn't already been a lot of wind up, with the school, and a lot of meetings with the school. Some parents do want to bring attorneys in it, right in the beginning to make things right. Honestly, I always tell parents, I'm like, this is a cost benefit analysis, right? It's like, because attorneys are expensive, and, what are you going to gain from an attorney versus an advocate? When it gets to be really contentious, that's the time when, and honestly, even advocates will refer to attorneys. I think in general that advocates know, like, we've taken this as far as we can go. We need to get it to an attorney now.
Absolutely. Yeah. As non-attorney advocates, we definitely know when generally people are asking us to do attorney-like advocacy. And that's really when we provide those appropriate referrals, because we want to make sure families get what they need when they need it, by the right people to deliver it. Right. And so it sounds like too, that it's just individualized. It's based on what works for your family, what the pressing issue is. We also know that there are, potentially pro bono or state funded disability loss, resources that also could be an option too. And so we just want families to better understand, that the advocacy strategy is long and wide, as long and as wide as you want it to be, really. And so really appreciate that, especially, coming from that legal background. It's important for families to know that you can get as little or as much as you need, but it is going to come at a cost. And that's kind of my follow-up question too, Jackie, is what are some things that families should know about, the potential payoffs of engaging legal support, as well as any kind of distractions or things to consider? We know that with any escalated strategy, there are benefits and potential consequences, and that having families really understand that up front sure makes decision-making a little bit easier. Can you tell us a little bit about pros, perhaps cons?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that nobody's getting some big money settlement. So, that's usually something we screen out right away. It's like, okay, we're not going to get the principal fired, and we're not going to get some big cash settlement. parent attorneys, we're not personal injury attorneys. We don't get 1/3 of a settlement. People
Yeah.
think we do. That's
Yeah.
not true. I just tell parents, like, what you can gain is services, mostly
Sure.
services, reimbursement. Like sometimes if we do have to file complaints, then yes, we ask for attorney's fees to be reimbursed. If definitely we ask for reimbursement for maybe for an outside evaluation. Maybe we ask for reimbursement for private services. That's probably the most common. And typically these families have spent a lot of money on private services by the time we
Yeah.
get to the point if we're actually going to file a complaint. I do think it's important to have an attorney, especially like if you're going to go due process, that one you pretty much need an attorney to file that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's like, even through my office, like we can do a consult. And if it's a case where we're like, okay, this one's ready to file a complaint, either state or federal, like we can help parents with that even in an hour if the
Yeah.
facts are right. Like if
Sure.
they come with like very kind of just very black and white, that's the cases we take. That's how we win.
Totally.
Because we turn away a lot of cases just because the gray area isn't good for parents. It ends up just like this is going to be expensive, and then you're going to end up getting not enough bang for the buck is how I would say it. So
Totally.
I hate that it seems to be like money dependent. We have, like you said, we have Disability Law Colorado.
Yep.
They have special ed attorneys, and so
Sure.
a shout out to them. So they can help. My office does do 20% pro bono, but I hate to say that because then 1,000 people call.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think, some of the best legal strategy we've seen also creates policy change at that district or school level as well. And so, it's all of the piece around making sure, yes, your kiddo's getting what they need, and also making sure that it doesn't happen again in the future. One thing that we always mention to families as well is as soon as you bring in a legal expert, most things are put on pause right then and there, right? And so it could, if a family is needing a quick turnaround or emergency support in some place, bringing in legal supports is not always the quickest route there.
I think it's true if you're going to bring them to a meeting, but surprisingly, maybe to some people, like parent attorneys and school attorneys actually have good relationships. I have excellent relationships with school attorneys. So often I can just, like, if a parent calls me, I can just send an email to their attorney, and I just go, this is a courtesy message, heads up. This parent called me, this is their kid, and I hope to not hear from them again. That works more than half the time. Yeah, so like just kind of giving a heads up to the school attorney, and then they're going to go follow up, and then it's done. So we do a lot of that. I think that the main thing is you don't want to be adversarial with people who are going to have your kid all day. Yeah. And sometimes people don't want to call attorneys because of that, because I think they think it's more adversarial than what it is. Like my work is 90% of it, 90% is not adversarial. It's, we do a ton of IEP meetings, but so we're sitting at the table, and it's problem solvers, and we're not really fighting, and we don't fight at the table, because if we get to the disagreement at the table, we're like, put that in a PWN, and then if we want to file something, fine. But we have the school attorneys know the same way that the parent attorneys are thinking. It's federal law; it's pretty black and white. For sure. So we, we all know, like, what are the possibilities here? And I think that actually makes it easier for attorneys. A lot of parents are hesitant to bring in an attorney because, they don't want to make people mad. And so, I'm always like, yeah, that's good thinking. You don't want to make people mad.
For sure.
You want to have attorneys at the table. When it's something, like I say, when it's something black and white that, attorneys together can be like, oh, this needs to be like this.
Absolutely.
And it makes it easy.
Absolutely. Well, and it makes sense. I mean, it's similar to a lot of the advocacy strategy that we also work on in office, is we want to make sure that, families and teams remain whole when we're not there. Right. And so, we don't ever want to be another system that a family has to rely on to get what they need when they need it. And so similar when engaging legal expertise, wanting to make sure that, of course, we're addressing the problem area, right? We've got to address the issue. That's why either one of us are involved. But, making sure that it's done so in a way that's collaborative and focused on communication just makes sense for families and kids.
And I think probably you have the same experience as me too, where a lot of this work becomes kind of person dependent, not school district dependent. Because, people always ask, oh, what's the best school district for kids with disabilities? And I always go, it depends on who's there.
Totally.
And so there's some districts or special ed directors, that are so easy to work with.
Yeah.
And then, which again is most, I think that's a lot of them. But then it's like, that's one way we decide if we're going to get into a case or not. It's like, okay, if we know, a certain district, a special ed coordinator or director that we know is difficult, then it's like, okay, you need to have us at the meeting. But then there's other times when it's like I said, I can do that super easy email reach out to the attorney. So it does become kind of person dependent. I don't know if you find it the same way.
We definitely do. I mean, one person's nightmare is another person's dream come true. And so it is almost impossible to answer questions around the best or where should, because it really just depends on the uniqueness of the individual, what their service needs are, and the other humans working in it, right? That's the beauty of the educational system, is that it's so human reliant. Right. So it's a beauty, and also can be a for sure drawback depending upon the issue and moment.
There's always somebody good at the table. And this is what I always tell parents too. I'm like, you've got to focus on that, the person who's so great for your kid and, feed them. I'm like, feed them. Like,
totally.
That's the person you want to focus on.
Well, and entering into those relationships, assuming good intent, right. I think is important too, right? That oftentimes families that come to the ARC, and I'm sure come to your office as well, have been kind of fried by systems, right? That they haven't always felt like they've received that kind of wraparound care and support that they so need. But it doesn't also benefit many families to enter into the next team or the next group of people kind of carrying a lot of that stuff. And so if we assume good intent, find a way to collaborate and communicate around issues, oftentimes things can be resolved quicker. They can be resolved in a way that doesn't impede the family's relationship with the school team. And that's just a win for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's hard when you're dealing with people's kids, right? Just like, like all of us, it's like, there's a line in the sand, right? Do not mess with my kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why organizations like both of ours are around, so that we can support families to navigate these bureaucratic systems is primarily it, right? These systems and that law, while black and white, are super trying to navigate, right? They were not intended for ease. So I think that's why families are so excited to be involved with the ARC and have awesome referrals like your office and all those, in the Denver metro area as well. So we so appreciate your time offering kind of your feedback. Is there anything else that you'd want families or individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to know?
I do a big shout out to the ARC. I mean, the only criticism about the ARC is that you're narrow in who you can represent, right?
Sure,
because
for sure.
We do a lot of disciplinary removal, and there's a lot of parents that are like, oh, we want the ARC to help, and it's like, oh, you're going to have to fall into a certain category
sure.
to get that support. But no, just statewide, fantastic organization. Thank you to all you guys for your work, because I don't hesitate if someone says, they're reaching out to the ARC, ARC can get involved. I don't hesitate on that. I'm like, yes, absolutely do that. It's a great choice.
Very cool. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us. We sure appreciate it. And everyone out there, thanks for tuning in and listening. Stay tuned for our upcoming series through THINK+change and the ARC of Aurora. Take care.
Thank you.
THINK+change. Talks, trainings, and tools to help in your work for or with people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. Learn more at www.thinkchange.training.